Okay, so once again, my name is Jamie Hale. I am a trainer with Trivanis Corporation. For today's session, we are going to be focusing on storyboarding tips and tricks using PowerPoint and Lectora. And with storyboarding, basically what you're doing is creating a visual design for your project and details on how each page should be developed throughout your course. Now, for the agenda this afternoon, we're going to focus on three main things. We're going to take advantage of storyboarding techniques using Lectora and/or PowerPoint. I'm going to provide you some best tips and tricks, tools and techniques for the storyboarding, and also some examples towards the end of this demonstration. Now, just as a heads up, I am going to be showcasing more of the mechanics of storyboarding. I know a lot of people think of storyboarding as designing your course, but unfortunately, I cannot teach you how to design a course within an hour. There's so many ways of going about designing. It's just a matter of kind of getting that format and then the mechanics straightened up front initially before you actually go into that development phase. So with that said, let's go ahead and move forward. And the first thing I want to go over is just kind of a storyboarding process. How do you create your e-learning content? So what you currently see in front of you is kind of a mind map that we've created, just pointing out some of the basic features or a specific process, if you will, of how to create your e-learning content. Now, first things first, you're going to notice that you start off at the very beginning setting up your learning objectives, if you will. So your learning objectives are going to be the most important instructional design tool for self-paced e-learning because they're going to provide your course direction, thus creating the foundation for your course. Once you have your learning objectives set up, you will then go on to create a course outline. This outline is the result of using those learning objectives to select the content for the course and establishing your list of lessons, topics that you want to present. From there, you may want to create an instructional strategies worksheet. What this is the result of determining an instructional approach by using learning objectives for direction and e-learning best practice ideas. And then that's going to tie together to create what we call a course map. A course map uses that course outline and the strategies worksheet to design a course map which will define the pages, activities, practice, demonstrations, simulations, animations, etc., which will be in the course. Now, the course map will also show how the course flows, so thus how the learners will navigate through the course. From there, you can create an instructional design document. We call this an IDD. What this does is use the instructional strategies and course map to lay out the pages, transform content into instructions, refine the design approach of each page to add graphics and audio. And then that's going to take you to your storyboarding, which is going to be your course blueprint. Think of this as a blueprint for course development. So that IDD document creates the foundation for the storyboard. And that storyboard is your opportunity to visually lay out pages, activities, demonstrations, etc. in detail. Now, it is also where you write out your instructions for graphic designers or your course developers to ensure that the instruction comes through the development as you intended. So there's going to be a fine balance and art to writing developer instructions that ensure a quality learning experience and allow the professional graphic designers and developers to add their professional expertise too. So, our focus, what is storyboarding? Now, I just kind of gave you a book definition, if you will, of what storyboarding actually is. But let's look at it from kind of an everyday approach of how we create our e-learning content. So e-learning itself can be synchronous or asynchronous, meaning facilitated or not, or self-paced. So for it to be quality e-learning, each delivery deserves a design that matches the delivery method, which takes into account a diverse, large audience and a distant or non-existent facilitator. Now with that said, in self-paced learning, it is particularly important to integrate instructional design principles, multimedia design, to create a quality learning experience with impact. So the instructional design principles structure the message. This is going to be accomplished with clear, concise learning objectives, a course outline, instructional strategy, course layout and navigation, and then transforming the content into clear, concise e-learning instruction. Now, e-learning instruction is written for the e-learning course. For example, taking the slides from a presentation with using facilitator scripts doesn't work well for a self-paced course. It's like paging through a presentation without a facilitator. So flow needs to be added into your course for clarity and understanding. Now, there's a second part to this, the multimedia design. That's going to facilitate the message. And this is going to be accomplished with a theme and approach that speaks to the audience. So a design of the graphic user interface, interactive exercises, imagery, demonstrations, simulations, animations, audio and video. And these are going to frame, support, connect, and guide that learning experience. So for an instructionally sound, self-paced e-learning course, you cannot have one without the other. If you focus only on instructional design, the course flows and is structured with little delivery other than an online read. So it can become a page turner with little delivery. And if you focus only on graphics and multimedia, the course may not have direction, purpose, or substance, and it can become distracting. So in e-learning, all graphics and multimedia need direction, purpose, and a reason for existing, or it can become meaningless. So today I'm going to show you how to actually go through and combine these two together within your storyboarding approach. So where do we start? Well, first off, there's absolutely no right or wrong way to storyboard. So keep in mind, storyboard is a comprehensive design document where you will work out the design details of the course to create a blueprint for course development. And like I said, although there is no right or wrong way to storyboard, today what I'm going to do is provide you with the mechanics to get started, as well as some tips and tricks. We're using PowerPoint as one example used for storyboarding. Now, there are several advantages for actually using PowerPoint as your storyboarding tool. First things first, the visual layout of each page. So within PowerPoint, you can actually build that layout of the interface that's going to take place within Lectora. You also have an area for notes to include any type of instructions that are needed throughout your course. Another advantage, most people have PowerPoint, so it's easy to gain feedback. So basically what I'm saying here is, let's say that you're working with multiple developers, or you need to have your storyboard approved from your subject matter expert in advance before you actually start building the content. So it's easier to just send them the storyboard that pretty much has your course already framed and laid out, and then they can provide feedback via the notes area, and then you can implement those within Lectora. Okay, now once you actually have an idea of your course content, you have to actually build that content within PowerPoint. So a storyboard is where you're going to take all the information you've accumulated thus far, put it together within that design document or blueprint, as I keep referring to. So the main purpose of the storyboard is to design out details of every page in the course and provide a visual design. It's going to include detailed instructions for graphic designers and developers about how each page should be developed and transitioned. Now, in addition to this, the storyboard includes specifics. So I went ahead and listed all these options over on the left-hand side. The first one I want to focus on is it's going to include a list of consistent design elements. And what I'm referring to here is the look and feel of page types. So if you have knowledge check pages, you're going to create that design element. If you're going to have tables, bullets, text boxes, your font styles, you're going to include those specific formats that will take place within your course. The second thing, GUI and navigation. If you're not familiar with the terminology GUI, this is going to be your graphic user interface. So your storyboard is going to include the graphic user interface as a backdrop and a description of the navigation and instructions. You are also going to include your course outline and map. So the course outline and map are included from that instructional design document that I referred to earlier. The map is for reference while designing the layout and pages, and the course outline could become more of a drop-down menu or chapter button reference. Fourth item, design of activities, videos, animations, demonstrations, etc. So any type of activity that's going to be taking place will be outlined and included within that storyboard. Knowledge checks and assessments. So knowledge checks should be included to allow learners to see if they are learning the material, and they should also provide feedback. You can also include assessments, which are optional and are often used to evaluate learners' assimilation of the instruction, as well as define successful course completion. Last but not least, and this may not refer to everyone, but 508 compliance requirements. Basically what you're doing here is making your course handicap accessible. So if your course requires 508 compliance, you can include instructions about how to alter each page for the 508 compliant version of the course. So if you require only one path through a course for every member of your audience, and it must be 508 compliant, be sure to design the course with those requirements considered. You can use this within the notes, within the PowerPoint section, which I'll point out to you in just a few moments, or the notes section that is included within Lectora. Okay, moving forward, once you kind of have your content laid out, you want to consider some things when you're starting to design. So when sitting down to design every page of your course, there's going to be 4 things that it's going to be important for you guys to remember. Or, I'm sorry, 3 things. I'm looking right at it. So the first one's going to be the 3 goals. You want to make sure that your course flows, connects, and engage with your audience. You also want to balance the design across major learning styles. So visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. So you don't want it to overwhelm or underwhelm your audience if you're only focusing on one major learning style. And the last one, additional imagery. So imagery should support the learning, not distract from it. So keep in mind that you have multiple learners out there that learn at different learning types, we'll put it that way. So you want to make sure that you're kind of crossing all fields here and making sure that you have a great balance between the different learning styles. Okay, moving forward. The next thing you're going to want to do is decide on a graphical user interface, once again referring to this as the GUI. So the GUI creates the foundation for the look and feel of your course. And all of the course level navigation and options are also going to reside on the GUI, so they are available at all times during course operation. Now, designing your GUI is dependent on the skill sets and resources available to you. So if you have graphic design skills or a graphic designer available to you, you can create a custom GUI. Now, perhaps you have other options. Maybe your company has a template for online courses that has already been created. You can also find elements for a GUI on stock image sites. One that I recommend to you, which I've placed on the course here, is a site called iStockPhoto. This is a great website to go out to purchase images, borders that you may want to use for your interface. And then the last option is actually using Lectora. Lectora has about 250 templates that you can actually work off of that are already designed for you. So that's a huge advantage. So if you do not have, that graphic design background, or you don't have a graphic designer available right at your fingertips, you can actually use something that's already been developed. The example that I currently have on the page for you is one of the templates that are already built within Lectora that we actually use for one of our training courses. And then you'll notice that they're pretty consistent throughout. You have your navigation, pretty basic interfaces with title of your course, but very user-friendly. Now, speaking of navigation, that's going to be our next step that I want to focus on when you're actually creating your content and storyboarding out your material. So course instruction and design determines navigation. So at that GUI level, most courses have a minimum of just a previous page, next page, and exit button. Now keep in mind you can also have chapters or lessons available for direct access to topics. Now, there are also times where directly interacting with the instruction itself navigates the learner through the course. So most courses have a combination of navigation methods. What is important is for the navigation to be consistent on each level and obvious and easy to use. Now, some things to consider with this. When you're actually storyboarding out your content, you want to know in advance if your course is going to be linear or non-linear. So how you want your learners to take in the information determines flow through the course. Also, dependencies, such as, does lesson 2 depend on knowing lesson 1 first? Another thing to consider would be availability of lessons. So a rule of thumb that I follow is to often follow what your learners must take, or how your learners must take the instruction in for the first time. So maybe once the user has gone through it a second time, you're going to leave those lessons open, if you will, for the returning learner, using the course more as a reference tool. So once you have that navigation figured out, the biggest thing is making sure to include a description in the storyboard for the course developer. Now, some other things that you're going to determine up front is the look and feel of your text boxes, the look and feel of submit buttons within your knowledge checks or your course assessments, and your font options. So let's say that in specific areas you're going to be using font that's going to be bolded. You want to make sure that it's consistent throughout your course. So you want to set that all up front within your instruction of your storyboard. So once you have your navigation, your GUI created, you're now going to focus on designing your pages. So when designing pages for your course, you're going to consider 4-page layout and design techniques. The first one that I want to focus on is going to be the standard page layout. When taking a look at your GUI interface, you're going to notice that a standard page layout is chosen. So what this means is the most pages in the course will have the same layout. So whether it be text above images or text on left, or maybe your imagery is on the right, you're going to create that layout within your interface. So this is going to add flow to the course. Now, if every page in the course were designed in a different way, it's going to be distracting for your learners. Now, the second thing to consider is consistent design for types of pages. So another level of structure can be added to your course by choosing a page layout and consistent design for types of pages. So an example of this would be your lesson introductions, your summary pages, your knowledge check pages, demonstrations, videos, etc. But if you have 5 video pages within your course, I would make sure that all 5 of those pages are consistent from a design standpoint. Also, consistent design of course elements. So with your course elements, the design is going to impact pages such as the ones that include tables, text boxes, important notes. So the technique of using consistent layout and design for pages and course elements allows learners to recognize a page type or a course element. So subconsciously, which guides their learner or their learning, as an example, let's just say when you're on a course, and let's say you come across a video page. I'm going to know up front that the first thing I'm going to do is similar to an instructor in a classroom saying, now we're going to watch a video, is that when I see an important note icon, oh, that's going to be an important note letting me know that I need to click on it and view that video demonstration, whatever that's being presented. So you want to keep those consistent throughout your course so your end user knows exactly where to focus. Now, the fourth item, which I do not have listed here, but it is talking about white space. White space is your friend. I know a lot of people think when they're designing courses that they need to pile the material, page after page after page. Not necessarily. Too much on a page overwhelms learners and becomes distracting rather than supportive of the learning experience. So using white space also helps complex topics seem easier to learn. Now, all of this doesn't mean that you can never change a page layout for a one-off page in your course. Just basically have a reason for making it different and know that subconsciously it will stand out from the others within your learning experience. Okay, I want to go ahead and provide you with some graphic design tips. Now there's 4 options here that I first want to focus on. You have your fonts, colors, navigation, and PowerPoint, and that's really referencing to images. So first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at fonts. So I know the majority of you are wearing multiple hats when you're actually building these online courses. And the likelihood of having a graphic designer on hand for all courses is probably slim to none. So that's why I want to point out some tips to you to kind of send you in the right direction. So with fonts, the first thing I focus on is no more than 3 styles in any course. And select simple fonts between 10 to 12 points. So ones that we're all familiar with, Arial, Times New Roman, you name it. Use the simple fonts that are clean and professional looking. Now, consistency in how you use fonts is also important. So you should have a purpose or a reason for a font and use it for that reason only throughout the course. So an example would be italicize for emphasis. Maybe you want to choose a handwritten font for important notes. And sizing also has to be consistent. So maybe for your title fonts, you'll use 12 point. For your body, you'll use 11. For tables and charts, 10 point. Either way, keep it consistent. Your color options. Keep it simple. A neutral background and unified color scheme appear more professional. So make sure there is enough contrast between your background and text. Keep in mind that colors can mean different things to different audiences and should support the theme of your course. Also, navigation. Keep button styles and states consistent throughout the course. So if you use a different button style, have a reason for doing so, and keep that use consistent. So create buttons with standard rollover and click states. You can label navigation for clarity unless their use is obvious. And also keep in mind, if translating the course, consider cost versus benefit of labeling navigation. And PowerPoint. Let's just say this. If you take an image into PowerPoint and add a treatment to it or create tables in SmartArt, you can copy and paste those items right into Lectora as a BMP file. Now, if you want to use JPEGs, you can either save the image in PowerPoint out to a JPEG or use Snagit to create an image from the screen and save to a JPEG. And that can also be imported right into Lectora. So, once again, just some basic graphic design tips. The biggest thing, guys, is just making sure everything is consistent throughout your course. Okay, moving forward, the next thing we're going to focus on is bringing in activities and demonstrations. So, activities and demonstrations are important to design into your course. They're going to be key to delivering instruction in a dynamic and engaging way. But once again, I have some guidelines to kind of follow within your design of activities. First things first, support learning objectives. So every learning activity should be designed to support a learning object. So allow the objective and instruction guide that you design in the activity you choose. So what I always ask myself is, what kind of activity would help me learn this material best? Is it going to be a video? Is it going to be an audio file? Is it going to be more hands-on from an end user perspective? So if it is hands-on, you can go in and create simulations within Lectora, and that's the example that I currently have provided in this course currently. So if you need to take them through a process, it involves the user to get more engaged with the content with that hands-on approach. But always ask yourself, what kind of activity would help you learn this material best? The second thing to consider is having a clear purpose. So avoid having or designing an activity for the sole purpose of entertainment or just to get something in the course that seems engaging. These kinds of activities usually end up being distracting rather than engaging and seem extraneous to learners. So it's going to be important for the learning activity to have a purpose. So starting with a learning objective, it is a good beginning on the path of purpose, but you should also ask yourself some additional questions. Will the design of this activity teach the points required to meet the learning objective? And does the instruction warrant an activity, or how important is it? Here's the thing. Too many activities can be overwhelming. So what I usually do is to have the most impact, use activities to reinforce the most important information. So if you want to use placement as one form of evaluating how many, keep it at about one activity per 5 to 7 pages. So once again, you're going to make sure that it's not too overwhelming for the end user. So create those activities, like I said, every 5 to 7 pages. And then the third guideline when working with activities and demonstrations is going to be providing feedback. So when an activity is a knowledge check or some other type of discovery learning activity, it's important to provide clear feedback. Sometimes showing the correct answer is enough though. But ask yourself, would more explanation help the learner understand why this is the correct answer? If the answer is yes, provide some additional feedback. Feedback can be used to reinforce learning or the why behind the answer, even if the learner performs the activity correctly. Keep in mind, you're going to outline all these activities and demonstrations within that storyboard piece, so we're just kind of working up to that. All right, our next thing to consider is going to be adding multimedia into your storyboard. So multimedia adds dimension to e-learning that can bring online learning basically to life. So multimedia elements are important to design into your courses to provide dimension, connection to the real world, and engagement. Now, multimedia is often included to provide engaging demonstrations, activities, simulations, learning experiences, videos, and more. But once again, I have some things to consider. You want to make sure that you support learning objectives. So having a multimedia element in the learning without a reason is not only costly entertainment, but it detracts from the learning experience. Because multimedia production is time and resource intensive as well as costly, it's going to be important to choose where to include this multimedia for the most impact. The second thing, have a clear purpose. So let's say you're choosing between Flash or some other multimedia development tool for activities or your demonstration. Basically, you want to make sure that you have a clear purpose for it, especially due to the resources, the time and money it takes to produce multimedia components. So having a clear purpose assures you that the multimedia is worth the investment, and furthermore, too much multimedia in a course can be overwhelming and adds seat time. And when the learner arrives on a page with a video or a simulation, you have to consider the amount of time they will spend in the seat time equation. Now, whenever I'm creating videos, I pretty much follow the rule of thumb to cap it between 3 and 5 minutes. I want to make sure that I don't lose my audience's attention when doing so. So I always leave it between 3 and 5. Now, the third thing to consider is going to be your technology limitations. This is where you're going to actually pull in your subject matter expert to determine any technical limitations of the delivery environment that must be considered before using multimedia elements in your course. And then you also have your costs, time, and benefits. So although multimedia can add great dimension, don't get me wrong here, it connects learners, like I said, to the real world, it engages learners, but careful consideration must determine whether or not the benefit outweighs the cost and time to produce these mini projects, if you will, within your e-learning. So they also require their own project management and often additional people with a specialty skill set in graphic design and Flash or multimedia production. So it is a good idea to ask yourself if there's another way to deliver the learning that would be equally learner-centered and engaging. So let's look at it this way. Audio. Audio is considered multimedia. So as with all multimedia, you must plan audio production as its own mini project. So you have to plan for audio production, so whether it be voice talent, recording, editing, and inclusion into the course. And you have video. Video can be expensive and time-consuming to produce. Typically, like I said, I keep my video between 3 and 5 minutes, and personally, I use Camtasia as an easy recording tool. Camtasia offers an easy and cost-effective method for including video within your Lectora titles. For those of you that are not familiar with Camtasia, it is already built within Lectora Inspire, so you will have direct access to it. And I know I saw a question come through asking my thoughts with Camtasia versus Captivate. Personal preference on this one, I believe Camtasia is great for short screen recordings, and I'm going to say short, about 3 to 5 minutes again, whereas Captivate is great for larger recordings. Now, here's the thing. With Captivate, what I've just experienced from the past, just from some of my training, that Captivate is not supported on all learning management systems. They're not SCORM compliant, whereas Camtasia works directly, like I said, right within Lectora, and they are SCORM compliant. So, like I said, personal preference. Okay, moving forward. Now, once you actually have everything storyboarded out, what's the purpose of this storyboard? Some people think, you know, this step is very time consuming when you're building everything within your course. Now, the storyboard is going to be the final comprehensive design of the course, or the blueprint, which can be used or one or more of the following ways. You can have business deliverable. So let's say you're requiring a sign-off on the storyboard prior to starting the next step in the project. Think of your storyboard as a prototype. You also have legal and translation. If the legal department needs to see the entire storyboard design rather than instruction, image, and audio scripts, use the storyboard for this approval. And if translation companies need to translate text on images, you can send the final storyboard. And then you also have your blueprint for development. So if you follow that process that's been presented today, the storyboard becomes the final blueprint for production. Now, before I actually move on with the recommendations that you guys currently see sitting on the screen, I do want to clarify one thing. With Captivate, I was not stating that it's not SCORM compliant. It is SCORM compliant, but I was saying that it does not work well with a lot of learning management systems. So I stand corrected. It's a great tool. I'm not saying anything against that. But from a learning management side, sometimes things do not work correctly. Okay, so coming back to this, recommendations for websites or programs for storyboarding. So what have we been focusing on? PowerPoint and Lectora. So you do have those options, which I'll show you some examples in just a few moments. I've also placed two websites out here that I use for storyboarding. One is called Lucidchart, and the second is Dabbleboard. Now, here's the thing. If I am developing content that needs to be approved by a subject matter expert, most likely I'm going to use PowerPoint to do so, just because it provides me a little bit more with some flexibility to send that PowerPoint to my subject matter expert, and then they can provide feedback as needed. So the other three that I have listed, Lectora and the two websites, are great if you're working independently on a project, because you can actually use some of the features available within Lectora to leave some notes for yourself, use a review link to send out to a subject matter expert if needed. So we'll go over all this in just a few moments. And then Lucidchart and Dabbleboard, these are more fun tools than anything else, fun websites where you can go out and build your own GUI, your interface for your course, and storyboard your content within their site. So let's go ahead and first take a look at PowerPoint as an example. So the example that I'm actually pulling up for you is a storyboard that we configure every single time that we build courses at Trivanus. So you're going to notice it's going to take us through the steps that I just outlined within this presentation. So the first thing you're going to notice is kind of the outline of the course. So the blueprint, if you will. Once I move forward to the next page within the storyboard, it's going to have my course design instructions for the developer. So whether this be yourself or other developers that you're using to design your content, you're going to place all the information needed here. So you want to make sure that you tell them to create consistent navigation for bullet points, text boxes, submit buttons. Maybe you have a specific font that you want the developer to use. All this is going to be laid out up front. Same with navigation. You're going to lay out directions on how you want your course to be navigated through. So whether it be, linear navigation, or maybe you're going to set up some branching within your course, you're going to place those specific directions as needed. And then we're going to provide just some consistent looks for specific elements. So all of your tables are going to have this consistent look and feel. All of your video players will have a consistent look and feel. So you're going to set up all these standards up front. And then some more course directions, if you will, talking about transition statements, text boxes once again, focusing on when you want to bold and italicize with purpose for an emphasis. So you're basically just telling the developer exactly what to create. Then you're going to have your course outline. This pretty much sums it all up here. This is where you're going to say, okay, these are my topics. These are the pages that are going to be created. So this is your entire lesson with the course outline. And then you can provide that course map showing the flow of the course. And then from there, you pretty much develop your course. So you have your opening screen, so your home page, and then you're going to notice on this next slide, we actually have the interface being presented, so the GUI, if you will. Once again, this is one of Lectora's interfaces or templates that we focused on using here. We actually use this in one of our training courses currently, but you'll notice navigation will be consistent throughout. We're showing, different text that's going to be appearing, type out all of your text, etc. Now, here's the benefit, I think, with PowerPoint. You always have a notes section down below where you can leave your own recommended notes, or your subject matter expert can leave notes here as well. But basically what you're doing here is setting up everything that's going to take place on this page. So you're going to notice like graphic notes, pop-up windows. If you have audio, you're going to notice that what we typically do is actually write out the entire audio script down below. If you know who's going to be recording that audio, what tool you're going to be using to record the audio, same with video. All this information is going to be placed down below. And then if you have to make your course 508 compliance, you can include any notes that's required for that specific page. So if you have a video, you're going to want to create closed captioning for that video. So as I navigate through, you're going to notice, let me actually minimize this for just a moment. You're going to notice the entire course is actually built out. Just with this example of the storyboard, we're just kind of giving you best practice and tips and tricks as navigating through. So let me actually jump back into Lectora. I do want to focus on one other thing here. Templates within Lectora. So let's look at it this way. Based on the approved GUI, your interface, and your storyboard, you can develop a template for the course. So that template is going to contain the GUI with your course level navigation, and it's going to be enhanced with styles and content that you can easily write over with actual content. So templates aid in keeping standards throughout your course development. Once again, Lectora has about 250 of them available. Now, the one that you currently see selected on the page is the one that I've been using for today's interface, or the GUI for the course that I was developing. But here's the benefit of actually using Lectora. So when you're storyboarding content in Lectora, you have a feature that we call notes. So let me actually jump into Lectora and just point this out to you. At any time, what you can do from a development standpoint is right-click on a page in Lectora and select to add a note. And as soon as you do so, a Post-it note appears where you can actually place any type of direction for this specific page. So just like you do in PowerPoint, you can add in font recommendations, page layouts, audio scripts, describe the interactions for the course. So it's just a matter of typing out the information. And you're going to notice that all notes are going to have date and time stamps, so you can add as many as you would like as you're going through that development process. The nice thing is with notes, they are specific for the developer. Your end user will not see these notes once this course has been published. Now, whenever you add notes into Lectora, we're going to go over in that left column and bold and italicize your pages so you know where those notes are located. But another nice feature is in your Tools drop-down menu, you can run a note report. So what this note report is exactly what you see on the page here. It's going to actually run all of your title notes, and it's going to allow you to filter them based on who created the note, when it was created. You can also see all the details that's been added into the note. And the nice thing is that you can print these out to help keep yourself a little bit organized. So if you're actually working as an independent developer, why not storyboard right within Lectora? Because then you're not so much having to go back out to PowerPoint, copy and paste everything in. Everything's already right within that shell, so right within Lectora. And the last thing I want to point out to you is the review link option. So this is one of our latest features within Lectora. And let's say that you did decide to storyboard within Lectora, and you need to send your content off to a subject matter expert. Now, if you're not familiar with the review link, let me just kind of give you a brief description of this real quick. It is an online review tool that's been developed by Trivanus, and Review Link allows you to share titles with online reviewers and capture their feedback. But here's the bonus. Let's say that I'm the developer. I'm the one that actually owns a license of Lectora. If I want to send this to Joe, my subject matter expert, and he doesn't have a license of Lectora, that's okay, because all of my subject matter experts that are reviewing my content do not need to have a license. This is free of charge. Now, you do have to have the pro version of Lectora Inspire in order to access Review Link. So what happens is reviewers can then add comments and attach files to reviewed pages to provide feedback. And then comments and attachments are then tabulated and presented to both publishers and reviewers so they can manage the status of the comments and then complete that review process. So this option is found within your publishing drop-down menu. And just keep in mind, it's a great way to receive feedback from your subject matter experts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kind of close up here. I do want to just throw this out to you guys once again. Just kind of keep in mind that this presentation was intended to cover the basics of some of the mechanics used for storyboarding. So I did provide you a lot of information for tips and tricks and kind of going through that process of using PowerPoint for storyboarding, and then also another recommendation if you want to storyboard right within Lectora. Now, we do offer an 8-hour instructional design course that covers what you've seen today and much more at a higher level. So if you are interested in that information, you're more than welcome to contact me and I will provide you with any information that's needed. Besides that, I'm going to go ahead and close this up for today. I do want to thank everyone for their time. And if you do have questions, please feel free to email me. My email is hale, H-A-L-E, @trivanusdev.com. Once again, thank you for your time this afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day.